everybody. Welcome to the Tournament Center. I'm Zach Hill here with Alex Sittner, playing a deck called, what's the name again?
It's called No Limit Soldiers.
And explain to us why the deck is called No Limit Soldiers.
So it's called No Limit Soldiers because, well, you're all in almost every hand.
Yeah, it seems like it's like a soldier tribal deck. Guys, this is one of the coolest decks I've seen at this tournament. Totally unlike anything else we've seen in Standard. Alex, can you tell us a little bit about what this deck is and what it does?
So what you're trying to do is play a whole lot of 1-drops and pump them up with either Obelisk of Erd or Dyna Charge or Spear of Heliod and outrace your opponents. You're trying to kill them before they get going.
So why is a deck like this good right now? Why haven't we seen anything, essentially like 21 drops and pump spells? Why haven't we seen that before?
Well, I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen it, but Obelisk of Erd is a card from M14 that really helps you out in the matchups that you need it against. I mean, you needed the extra 4 pump spells to get you to 9, and all of your creatures being soldiers and all 1-drops makes Obelisk of Erd just insane.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's actually take a look at what some of those cards are. Again, all soldiers, no real limit to them. We see Dryad Militant, Soldier of the Pantheon, Legion Loyalist, and Boros Elite. Now, we've seen a lot of Militant Soldier. They've done great on the Pro Tour stage. A little less of Loyalist and definitely less Boros Elite. Are these good just because they're 1-drop soldiers, or do each of these serve a specific purpose?
Well, I mean, in this deck, they're mostly good because they're 1-drop soldiers, but I mean, we've seen a lot of Militant and Soldier and Boros Elite in a deck, and then in a completely different deck, you have most of the red soldiers. I mean, the innovation in this deck is putting them all together and adding the pump spells that make them all huge.
Now, why specifically? I know Loyalist does kind of a lot of different things. You were telling me it was good against mono blue. It was also good against like green decks somewhat. What does this card do?
Loyalist makes pack rats not be able to block. He's haste, which is very important sometimes with the next cards. He makes Master of Waves tokens not be able to block. He gives all your creatures first strike so that after you pump them, often as an instant, you can take them by surprise, and first strike and trample can usually get the job done with Dyna Charge or Obelisk of Erd or Spear. And this guy's just amazing. You definitely want 4 of him.
That's awesome. Okay, so these are the 1-drops that kind of attack and block, but there's a little bit trickier dimension to this deck. If we can go ahead and take a look at some of the next cards, we see now a bunch of tokens. We've got a Crowan Crusader, Favored Hoplite, Launch the Fleet. Now this looks a lot like Stanislav Sivka's deck from the Block Pro Tour.
Right.
What kind of dimension do these cards give to the deck? And of course, raise the alarm to increase your token offense.
Right. I mean, these cards let the deck go a lot wider. The first time you launch the fleet on a Crowan Crusader and make 2 tokens on turn 2 or 4 tokens on turn 2, you're going to really like it. So yeah, adding a little bit of heroic dimension lets you really do tricks with Dyna Charge, it lets you really do tricks with Launch the Fleet, and it just gives you more 1-drops to be able to cast Obelisk of Erd on turn 3. I mean, the whole point of this deck is to play a 1-drop on 1 and 2 1-drops on 2, and then play a pump spell on turn 3. That will usually get you there. Like, there isn't really a deck in the format that can deal with a turn 3 Obelisk of Erd.
Now, I can definitely read Launch the Fleet, read a Crowan Crusader, and kind of compute that they work well together. But there was like a specific sequence of plays you were saying dealt like 25 damage on turn 3?
Sure, yeah. In one of the games earlier today, I played in a Crowan Crusader on turn 1, and then double Launch the Fleet on turn 2 on the Crowan Crusader to make 4 tokens. And then on turn 3, and attack for 5 that turn. And on turn 3, cast Dyna Charge and attack for 15. So it worked out pretty well.
That doesn't seem weak, but I do want to take a look. I mean, these are a lot of cheap creatures. At the end of the day, they're a bunch of 1/1s. There's a card that ties all of this together going. I want to do a single card spotlight on kind of the centerpiece of the deck, Obelisk of Erd.
Yep.
New card out of M15. You've alluded to this card being good, but I feel like it's not necessarily intuitive, or at least it wouldn't be intuitive to me, exactly how much of this deck is designed around Obelisk. Can you explain just exactly how this card functions?
Well, every single creature in your deck is a soldier. Mutavault is a soldier. Your Launch the Fleet's tokens are soldiers. Your Crowan Crusader tokens are soldiers. And you can almost always play this card on turn 3. You play 31 1-drops. Well, if you count Raise the Alarm, like Raise the Alarm can count as 2 1-drops. So, I mean, when you have this card in your opener, you can almost always play it on turn 3. And when you play it on turn 3, you almost always win on turn 4. So there's very little removal that deals with this in the format. Like Detention Sphere can deal with Obelisk of Erd. Some people are playing Putrefies, but other than that, there's not much that deals with an Obelisk bird. So even if they Wrath after you play Obelisk, your Mutavaults and your other creatures can usually come in and mop up. I mean, +2/+2, making all your creatures Wild Nicoddles in this format is just unbelievable.
It just,
yeah,
it's good to make your guys big.
Yeah.
And you know, I was thinking about it. I was thinking, you know, okay, what you do, you play like a 1-drop on turn 1, 2 1-drops on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you tap your 3 lands and your 3 guys to play Obelisk. It's actually even better.
Yeah,
than that,
it's
right?
even better than that, because not only can you tap your 3 guys that you have already out in play, you can play more creatures before that. So if you have 3 guys in play, you can play all the other creatures in your hand basically before you play the Obelisk, and then be able to attack with them the next turn when they're huge. So it's
totally unreal.
Yeah, it's completely unreal. I've killed, I've won probably 8 games today on turn 4. It's.
I mean, the thing that's counterintuitive, at least to me, is that, you know, the cards that are good against him are like Drown in Sorrow, you know, 3 mana, give everything -2/-2. With Obelisk, you can beat a Drown in Sorrow even if they have it, if you're on the play.
You can. I mean,
it's really good.
Yeah. you can beat most Wrath spells, like Supreme Verdicts, Drown in Sorrows, Obelisk will get you there through almost all of them.
Right. Now, of course, sometimes you don't draw Obelisk, so I want to take a look at the other ways the deck's able to pump. You've got 4 Dyna Charge, just 1 Spear of Heliod. You've alluded several times to like 9 pump spells. Why is 9 the right number? Why these particular cards?
Well, I didn't want to play Fortifies, and I didn't want to play the second Spear of Heliod. I mean, the Legendary can matter sometimes. 9 is enough to ensure that you always have a pump spell, even through Thoughtseize or something. Drawing too many pump spells is definitely bad, but always have it. You always really want to have one. You don't always need to have one to win, but usually you want one. Launch the Fleets can provide a lot of the same functionality as one of these pump spells, but this is what makes the deck run.
And I know you said you didn't want to play Fortify, but that is a card that can help you against Master Removal.
Absolutely.
Why is Dyna Charge better than Fortify?
Dyna Charge is better than Fortify because of the heroic creatures. Dyna Charge can act as a 1-drop if you have an Crowan Crusader in play, and also it can help to kill them out of nowhere with Favored Hoplite. Being able to play it for 1 mana is just a huge added bonus that you don't really get from Fortify. You never really have the 3 mana open when they're playing Drown. You really need to get on. You really need to get all in, so you can't really beat that card anyway.
All right, so I want to finally just take a look at how we actually cast all these spells. Now we're making use of the full 4 Battlefield Forge, 4 Mana Confluence, 4 Sacred Foundry. Really quick, just Mutavault. You know, it's a soldier, it's a land, but why only 3 Mutavaults?
So Mutavault doesn't actually cast most of the spells in the deck. The only spells that it casts are Launch the Fleet, Raise the Alarm, Obelisk of Erd, and the rest of your pump spells. So it doesn't cast any of your 1-drops. If you have a Mutavault and 1 other land hand, it can sometimes get pretty awkward.
And there, finally, of course, your basic lands, they cast the rest of the things. So for someone just playing the deck at this tournament, just the big takeaway, what is this deck good against? What is this deck bad against? Why would you play in the tournament?
Well, it's really bad against specific cards rather than specific decks. If your opponents have a lot of Golgari Charm, Drown in Sorrow, and Anger of the Gods, you're not going to do very well. And if they don't, you will probably have at least a fighting chance. The deck mulligans quite a bit, and it doesn't mulligan all that great. But if you have a decent hand, you're going to beat most everything.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Alex. This is Alex Sittner here with No Limit Soldiers. I'm Zach Hill at the Tournament Center. Let's stay tuned for more Magic here at Pro Tour Magic 2015.